Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Oscar Wilde's short story, Lord Arthur Savile's Crime. This is what I'm going to call a tragic farce. I don't even think it's a tragic comedy in that it's not funny. There's some bits where you get Oscar Wilde's traditional wit, his style, which can be quite amusing, but it's not funny in that it's not funny in a comic sense, but it is farcical in that there is a sort of a series of errors and a sort of series of misrecognitions, farcical mistakes, etc., etc. So, Lord Arthur Savile has gone to a ball given by Lady Windermere. Not, interestingly enough, the Lady Windermere of Lady Windermere's fame, who is very puritanical and sort of uptight and sexually repressed. This is a Lady Windermere who's very open, very sort of free, very jolly, etc., etc. She likes to party, she likes to have a good time, throw balls, etc., etc. And one person that she has invited to this ball, in addition to Lord Arthur, is Septimus R. Podgers, a chiromantist. A chiromantist is a palm reader, essentially. Lady Windermere has her palm read bi-weekly by this chiromantist, so that she can sort of decide what to do with her life. Right? It's this sort of read your horoscope every day, so you can determine what to do with your day and what choices to make or not make, etc. This kind of thing, and Lord Arthur eventually has his palm read by Podgers. And Podgers gives a sort of cursory reading, but he has gone pale with fear, and he's trembling. And it's quite clear that there is something he sees in Lord Arthur's hand beyond the sort of basic thing that he reports back. And so Lord Arthur presses him once the others have sort of gone into the other room to have dinner. Lord Arthur presses him to reveal the truth of what his palm says. And what Podgers reveals is that he sees in Lord Arthur's palm that Lord Arthur will commit murder. This, of course, is detrimental to Lord Arthur, not in the least because he wants to marry this woman named Savile, and he figures if it is his fate to commit murder, he should do that before he gets married. So, but that idea of fate is really important, and this is where the tragic element of Lord Arthur Savile's crime comes in. So, Wilde writes here, he had lived the delicate, this is Lord Arthur, had lived the delicate and luxurious life of a young man of birth and fortune, a life exquisite in its freedom from sordid care, its beautiful boyish insouciance, and now for the first time he became conscious of the terrible mystery of destiny, the awful meaning of doom. How mad and monstrous it all seemed. Could it be that written on his hand in characters that he could not read himself, but that another could decipher, was some fearful secret of sin, some blood-red sign of crime? Was there no escape possible? Were we no better than chessmen, moved by an unseen power, vessels the potter's fashions at his fancy, for honor or for shame? His reason revolted against it, and yet he felt that some tragedy was hanging over him, and that he had been suddenly called upon to bear an intolerable burden. Actors are so fortunate. They can choose whether they will appear in tragedy or in comedy, whether they will suffer or make merry, laugh or shed tears, but in real life it is different. Most men and women are forced to perform parts for which they have no qualifications. Our Guildensterns play Hamlet for us, and our Hamlets have to jest like Prince Hal. The world is a stage, but the play is badly cast. Wilde, of course, a dramatist. But what he is sort of introducing here is this idea of tragic fate, right? That someone can be compelled by destiny toward an outcome that they themselves would not seek. This is the foundation of tragedy, traditionally, right? If you go back to Greek tragedy, Shakespearean tragedy, etc., you have hamartia, the tragic error that an otherwise generally admirable or noble tragic hero commits. They commit an error, a tragic error, and from there their doom is sealed, right? And this, of course, is the sort of central philosophical question of tragedy traditionally is, could this character have done otherwise? Were they always fated on some level or by some mechanism to commit the error that they commit, right? Did Oedipus need to kill his father and marry his mother? Or could that fate have been avoided? Is this something, right? And did he need to subsequently refuse to take the advice to just leave well enough alone, right? This becomes the central sort of philosophical knot of tragedy is, does tragedy befall a character because of their own actions or because they are fated to experience that tragedy, right? Do we have agency, or does a tragic hero have agency, or are they merely the playthings of fate? As flies to wanton boys are we to the gods, they play with us for their sport, I think is the great phrase, I want to say from King Lear. And so that's the sort of question here, right? Is in Lord Arthur's poem, is murder written? Is he genuinely compelled by his fate, by some sort of overarching supernatural force to commit this murder, whether he will or no? Wilde very, very, very overtly is introducing this thematic, right? And this is not an accident, right? This is not a sort of casual thing. He is introducing this specifically because he wants to play with this tragic concern. And so, Lord Arthur comes up with a plan. What he reckons is that he wants to marry Sybil. If he marries her and then commits a murder, that is going to cause problems for the marriage. That is not going to be good. So, instead, he will commit the murder and then get married. He doesn't seem to reckon with the idea that he might be arrested or prosecuted for this murder. That doesn't really seem to enter into his calculations. Instead, he perceives this as it is his duty to commit this murder prior to getting married, so that within his married life there will not be any complications created by having committed this murder. Fair enough, I guess. So, what it says here is, he recognized nonetheless clearly where his duty lay, and was fully conscious of the fact that he had no right to marry until he had committed the murder. This done, he could stand before the altar with Sybil Merton and give his life into her hands without terror of wrongdoing. This done, he could take her to his arms, knowing that she would never have to blush for him, never have to hang her head in shame. But done it must be first, and the sooner the better for both. So he decides that he is going to basically make up a list of all of the people he knows, family members, friends, acquaintances, etc., and figure out who the best person to murder is. He chooses an aunt that he rather likes. His reasoning for choosing her is not super clear. But then none of his thought process makes that much sense when looked at rationally and objectively. But he decides he's going to murder her via poison. So he gives her this little poisoned pill that he basically has disguised as candy. She then subsequently dies. She leaves him some nice stuff in her will. He's very touched by this, and when he reflects on here, or what he says is that, what Wilde says of him, is that he felt that Mr. Podgers had a great deal to answer for. Which, again, complicates that idea of fate, right? Like, if his poem reflects a fate that Lord Arthur is committed to, he is subject to this fate, and Podgers is just the one who read that poem, Podgers is not really responsible. And Lord Arthur has made this conscious decision to commit this murder, and Podgers is not really responsible for that either. But here's where it gets farcical. He then discovers that the aunt he thought he had poisoned died of natural causes. And so, after he learns of his aunt's death, he immediately goes to Sybil and is like, let's get married now. And then he has to postpone the wedding when he finds out he hasn't actually killed his aunt. The same thing basically happens with an uncle or another relative. He tries to send an exploding clock. Turns out it didn't explode properly. All it did was sort of puffed a little bit of smoke, which they assumed was part of the sort of mechanism of the clock. So he once again fails to commit this murder, has to put off the marriage, etc., etc. And then finally, we get this moment where Lord Arthur is sort of wandering in despair through London. This actually would be a really good short story. I just got back a few days ago from my literary London course. This would be a really good short story to teach for a class in London, because there's a ton of specific locations identified, and you could have students sort of walk the route that Lord Arthur goes. So anyway, it says here, as he approached Cleopatra's Needle, he saw a man leaning over the parapet, and as he came nearer, the man looked up, the gaslight falling full upon his face. It was Mr. Podgers, the chiromantist. No one could mistake the fat, flabby face, the gold-rimmed spectacles, the sickly, feeble smile, the sensual mouth. Lord Arthur stopped. A brilliant idea flashed across him, and he stole softly up behind. In a moment he had seized Mr. Podgers by the legs and flung him into the Thames. There was a hoarse oath, a heavy splash, and all was still. Lord Arthur looked anxiously over, but could see nothing of the chiromantist but a tall hat pirouetting in an eddy of moonlit water. After a time, it also sank, and no trace of Mr. Podgers was visible. Once he thought that he caught sight of the bulky, misshapen figure striking out for the staircase by the bridge, and a horrible feeling of failure came over him, but it turned out to be merely a reflection, and when the moon shone out from behind a cloud, it passed away. At last he seemed to have realized the decree of destiny. He heaved a heavy sigh of relief, and Sybil's name came to his lips. "Have you dropped anything, sir?" said a voice behind him suddenly. He turned round and saw a policeman with a bull's-eye lantern. "Nothing of importance, Sergeant," he answered, smiling, and hailing a passing hansom, he jumped in and told the man to drive to Belgrave Square. For the next few days he alternated between hope and fear. There were moments when he almost expected Mr. Podgers to walk into the room, and yet at other times he felt that fate could not be so unjust to him. Twice he went to the chiromancist's address in West Moon Street, but could not bring himself to ring the bell. He longed for certainty and was afraid of it. It turns out that Podgers is dead. Lord Arthur has successfully committed his murder, and now he can get married to Savile. The final, so we've got those sort of two failed murders, and that's the first part of the farcical element of this, right? Lord Arthur commits the murder, gets married to Savile, lives happily ever after, and then the final sort of turn of the screw, the turn of the farcical screw in this short story is that at the end, Lady Windermere gives another ball, and she dismisses palm reading entirely. Basically says it's complete nonsense. Lord Arthur is stupid if he still believes it.